Hey there, welcome to the channel. This is a space where we tell the stories that don't always make headlines, but should. Real people, real struggles, and the hidden layers behind the faces we think we know. Consider subscribing if that speaks to you. Now, let's get into today's story. We live in a world that celebrates volume. The loudest voices, the biggest followers, the brightest spotlights. We scroll through feeds filled with influencers, billionaires, and big names. People who seem larger than life, changing the world in real time right before our eyes. But what about those who change the world without any of that? What about the ones who do it quietly? No headlines, no hashtags, no attention. Just everyday people doing extraordinary things. This is a story about them. This is the story of the quiet revolutionaries. Amina and the school beneath the tree. In the dry, sun-baked plains of northern Kenya, the days are long and the land is tough. There are no tall buildings, no paved roads, and for a long time, no school. But in the middle of this forgotten place lived a woman named Amina Wanjiru. Amina was not a politician, not a millionaire, not a celebrity. She was a mobile librarian, just a woman with a small motorbike and a box of books. Every day, she rode for hours through dust and heat, visiting remote villages and handing out books to children who had never owned one before. To most people, it was a kind gesture. To Amina, it was a lifeline. She saw something in the children's eyes, something most had stopped seeing. Hope. Not the kind of hope you write on posters, the quiet kind, the kind that flickers like a candle but never goes out. One day, Amina stopped her bike beneath a large acacia tree. She laid out a blanket, opened her box, and began to read to the children who gathered around her. That afternoon, the tree became a classroom, one without walls or desks or chairs, just imagination. They called it the Tree School. At first, there were only 5 students, then 10, then 30. Soon, parents started coming too, curious to know what was being taught beneath the shade. Amina taught them math using stones. She taught them science using leaves and insects, and literature using the few books she could carry on her back. Villagers began to help. One brought wood, another donated iron sheets. Together, they built a small shelter, then another. By year 3, the Tree School had become a fully functioning learning center, with chalkboards, benches, solar panels, and even uniforms. Still, no government support, no NGO campaigns, no cameras, just a woman, a bike, and a belief that every child, no matter where they were born, deserves to read their way into a better life. Amina still teaches under that same tree, though now it's hard to see the tree beneath the roof of the school it inspired. Jamal in the garage that built futures. In Detroit, Michigan, once the beating heart of America's automotive industry, there's a small, run-down garage that sits between 2 abandoned buildings. The sign outside is faded, the pavement cracked, but inside, something remarkable is happening. The man behind the garage is Jamal Tucker, a former street racer, a mechanic with grease on his hands and purpose in his soul. Jamal grew up around broken engines and broken homes. He knew what it was like to feel lost, to be written off, to be expected to fail. He survived by fixing cars, but over time, he realized one evening, Jamal noticed a group of teenagers hanging out near his shop. They weren't in school, they weren't working. They were just waiting. For what? They didn't know. One night, Jamal invited them in, offered them a wrench, taught them how to change oil, how to tune an engine, how to rebuild a carburetor. They came back the next night, and the one after that. And before he knew it, Jamal had a full-blown training program running out of his tiny shop. He called it Hood and Hoodies. It wasn't just about cars. It was about giving young men and women a reason to believe in themselves, a skill they could own, a future they could steer. Jamal didn't ask for money, didn't apply for grants. He just kept the garage open late, gave out tools, and told stories about mistakes he made and how not to repeat them. Today, some of his first students are certified mechanics. One started a mobile repair business. Another teaches engineering at a community college. Most important, none of them are waiting anymore. They're driving. And Jamal? He's still under that same hood, still turning wrenches, still turning lives around. Eduardo and the Forest of the Future. Thousands of miles away, in the center of Manila's chaos and concrete, sits a small public high school. Like many others, it's cramped, underfunded, loud. But behind this school, there's something completely unexpected: a forest. It didn't exist 25 years ago. In its place were parking lots, trash heaps, and broken glass. But one man, Eduardo Ramos, a biology teacher, saw something else. Eduardo grew up in the city slums. He had never seen a real tree until he was 12, never heard birds sing outside of cages, never touched soil that wasn't filled with plastic. So when he became a teacher, he made a vow. His students would grow up surrounded by life. He began by bringing in seeds, just a few. He taught his students how to plant, water, and protect them. Each child planted a tree, named it, and was responsible for it. Some named theirs after loved ones, others after dreams. One girl named hers Second Chance. Year after year, Eduardo repeated the lesson, one seed at a time, one student at a time. Today, over 11,000 native trees cover 5 city blocks behind the school. Birds have returned, monkeys have visited, even the air smells different. It's now known as the Ramos rainforest, a living, breathing reminder that nature doesn't need permission to return, just a place to begin. Eduardo will retire soon, but his forest will stand for generations. And his students? They know what it feels like to grow something that matters. Sophia and the Midnight Fridge. In a quiet suburb of Buenos Aires, where the nights hum with the sound of scooters and late dinners, a woman named Sofia Alvarez was losing sleep. It wasn't insomnia, it was hunger. Not her own, but the hunger she saw growing in her neighborhood. Ever since the economic crash, more families had begun to struggle. The power of quiet revolutions. So what do Amina, Jamal, and Eduardo have in common? They weren't elected, they weren't trending, they weren't rich. They just decided that waiting for change was no longer an option. They created it themselves, quietly, patiently, relentlessly. They didn't need applause, they just needed a reason. Somewhere today, someone else is starting their own quiet revolution, planting a garden in a food desert, starting a book club for kids in a shelter, mentoring one child in need, giving someone dignity, giving someone a future. You may never hear their names, they may never go viral, but their impact, it will ripple through lives for years to come. And maybe, just maybe, you've already met a quiet revolutionary. Your neighbor, your teacher, your bus driver, your father, yourself. Because changing the world doesn't always look like fireworks. Sometimes it looks like a seed in the dirt, a child with a book, a wrench in a young man's hand, a forest behind a school. The quiet ones are out there, and they're not waiting for permission.